On her first day at the hospital, head nurse Black asks her which department she wants to work in. She says pediatrics. Because she grew up in an orphanage and the nurses there treated her well, so she wants to grow up to be a nurse who cares for children. Head nurse Black agrees but sets a lot of strict rules. One of them is, don't talk to the doctors, because you're in a different class. After she's shown around the hospital, Rose gets ready to go to her post. A small incident happens on the way. While riding the elevator, a sleazy old man gropes her skirt. Rose angrily confronts him, but the man acts like nothing happened and the people around look the other way. Rose soon reaches her post. Since it's her first day, she doesn't know much about the hospital. A coworker tells her that because the power supply is insufficient, the hospital loses electricity every night and must rely on generators for emergency lighting. Curious, Rose asks what the hospital is like when the lights go out. No one gives her much detail, they just say it's pitch black. A little later, while Rose is using the restroom, she peeks through the glass and sees the stall door open by itself. When she goes over to check, she finds a little girl named Emily. Rose brings Emily back. At that moment she doesn't realize she's made a big mistake. She's proactively talked to a doctor. The doctor in front of her is named Dr. Daniel Strong, someone she used to admire. Not only is Daniel handsome, he's very kind and often appears in newspapers helping slum children. Now seeing her idol in person, Rose is so excited she can't help chatting with him, only stopping when head nurse Black appears. Then she suddenly realizes she may have broken the rule. After the other staff leave, head nurse Black finds Rose and scolds her, saying, "First day and you dare offend me? Clean this thoroughly as punishment," and then assigns her the night shift in the ICU. While she's cleaning, something strange appears. There's a pile of sticky goo near a vent, and the supply room door opens by itself. Rose goes to look and finds nothing. When she turns around, she's suddenly pushed. By the time she finishes cleaning, it's almost time to start the night shift, so Rose goes to the ICU. Before she leaves, head nurse Black gives her an oil lamp. As soon as she's gone, the power cuts out. The hospital is plunged into darkness. Rose hurriedly lights the oil lamp. Because she's unfamiliar with the hospital and a little afraid of the dark, she quickly loses her way in the blackout. She finally finds a lit room and goes in. It turns out to be the postpartum nursery. Inside are the two co-workers who'd spoken to her earlier, Nina and Glasses. They tell her she's in the wrong place. The ICU is over there. Following their directions, Rose reaches the ICU and runs into her cousin Lily. It turns out they were old classmates. The two sit by the window and chat. Lily speaks in a rather sarcastic tone because she knows Rose talked to Dr. Daniel Strong. She warns her that, "Daniel likes me, so you'd better be sensible and keep your distance." As they're talking, the lights suddenly go out. Lily grabs the lamp from Rose and goes to check the generator. Rose sits alone in the ward and suddenly gets the feeling that something is watching her. After that, Rose carried the lamp and walked toward the door. But she'd taken only a few steps when the flame went out. Immediately she was yanked by a force. Just as she scrambled to her feet, the lights came back on. The generator had been fixed and Lily returned, bringing a repairman named Sam. Lily and the repairman played music in the ward, laughing and joking, even getting handsy, and left Rose to look after the patients. After Sam left, Lily became even more brazen toward Rose and told her to go down to the first floor to fetch some medicine. Rose felt too embarrassed to refuse. She was afraid Lily would tattle, and after all, it was her first day, so she forced herself to go. In the pitch-dark corridor, Rose kept feeling that something was off, as if someone were staring at her. When she reached the door, she wanted to open it but didn't dare, and turned to go back. Yet she thought, "I've come this far, I can't just leave." What's wrong with this girl? Is she even human? Jumping at shadows like that just to scare us. Meanwhile, Rose kept walking toward the pharmacy. On the way, she suddenly stopped. She felt someone tugging at her from behind, and even her skirt lifted slightly. Terrified, Rose bolted down the corridor, running blindly until she reached the second floor and entered a room. There, she spotted a doll lying on the floor. Curious, she reached down to touch it, but in that instant she was dragged away. And then suddenly, she found herself back in the ICU, holding the doll. But her cousin Lily was gone. No matter how loudly she called, no one answered. Rose quickly phoned Nina and Glasses, explaining everything that had just happened. The two didn't believe her, thinking she was making up stories. Just then, a sound came from outside. When Nina went to check, it turned out to be little Emily. Why Emily was there, no one knew, and they couldn't even understand her language. Rose noticed Emily was holding a notebook. When they opened it, it was full of strange drawings, completely unreadable. As Rose sat there with the doll, she realized she had forgotten head nurse Black's warning. Nurses must never sit on a patient's bed. Nina scolded her to quickly get up and check on her patients. After finishing her rounds, Rose suddenly felt her body weakening. Then she began to convulse violently, stumbling toward Glasses. Rose kept trembling and convulsing. Nina and Glasses looked at her, completely baffled. They didn't know what was happening until little Emily grabbed her hand. Only then did Rose regain her senses. Afterward, Nina asked, "Do you have a history of mental illness?" Rose shook her head. "No, I don't." Then Glasses stepped closer and noticed a strange mark on Rose's neck. "That's odd," she said. "I'm sure you didn't have that before." The two of them started to get scared, thinking maybe Rose should just go home. But Rose couldn't leave. If head nurse Black found out, she'd definitely lose her job. While she was debating, she accidentally glanced out the window and saw a ghostly figure clinging to her body. Panicked, Rose grabbed a pair of scissors and stabbed her own thigh, perhaps to stop herself from losing control and being possessed again. Right then, Nina dragged her away. Rose later woke up on a hospital bed, where Emily handed her a photo. Rose pointed to a woman on the edge of the picture and asked who she was. Emily replied, "Her name was Nika. The strange things happening to you might be her doing." Rose went to Nina and asked who Nika was. Nina explained, Nika was a little girl no one liked. She had a bad temper, never listened, so even the orphanage abandoned her. Hearing this, Rose remembered the toy she had seen earlier. It was probably something Nika had left behind. Determined, she wanted to show it to Nina as proof Nika was still in the hospital. But just then, her cousin Lily suddenly appeared. Her eyes were completely blind, as if she had suffered something terrifying. She kept repeating Rose's name over and over. This made Nina suspect Rose. She believed Rose must have been the one who blinded Lily. Nina forced Rose into a storage room and locked the door. But Rose was once again possessed by the spirit and smashed through the glass to get out, staggering toward Nina. Nina had already prepared a syringe of sedative, but before she could inject Rose, Rose grabbed her hand, and the needle went into Nina instead. Blind Lily faintly sensed Nika's presence. "So the one possessing Rose is you, Nika," she said. Lily pleaded with her, "Nika, you did nothing wrong, and when morning comes I'll make sure the truth is told." But Nika ignored her pleas. Maybe she had snapped. Instead, she leapt out the window. After saving Lily, Rose found Emily again, now fully lucid. She confessed, "I'm nothing but a sinner. Once someone kills, the ghost targets new people." She handed Emily a pair of scissors for protection. Rose then went to look for Sam, the repairman, but unfortunately he was already dead. She took his keys, but just as she was about to leave, she was possessed again. Nika dragged her back to the ward. To avoid hurting anyone else, Rose swallowed a large amount of sleeping pills, forcing herself into unconsciousness. As she lay collapsed on the bed, she heard Nika's voice. It turned out Nika had been sexually assaulted by a man in the hospital basement before her death. That meant Nina's earlier words had been lies. Soon Rose blacked out completely. At daybreak, she saw that Emily was unharmed and felt relieved. Nika and Emily had been close friends in life. That's why Nika hadn't harmed her. Emily then spoke a long string of words, but the doctor nearby refused to translate for Rose, instead telling Emily to stop talking and dragging her away. Before leaving, Emily slipped her notebook into Rose's hands. Then came shocking news. A murder had happened inside the hospital. The director wanted to call the police but feared the impact on their reputation. He questioned Rose, "What happened here?" Rose told him it was Nika, that she had been violated and murdered by a man here. But the director said, "That's impossible. We've never had anyone named Nika." Rose insisted she was telling the truth, but no one believed her. After they left, she opened Emily's notebook. By rubbing the page, a hidden image appeared. It was a portrait of Dr. Daniel Strong. At once, Rose understood. Daniel was the one who had assaulted and killed Nika years ago. She immediately confronted him. Daniel led her to the basement, clearly intending to silence her. At the critical moment, Emily appeared, distracting Daniel. That gave Nika the chance she needed to fully possess Rose, unleashing a furious scream that destroyed Daniel. Afterward, Rose and Emily, trying to escape, ran into head nurse Black. She told them there was a hidden way out of the hospital where no one would notice. It turned out she and many others in the hospital, including the director, had known about Nika's death all along. But because Daniel was a skilled doctor and the hospital's reputation was at stake, no one dared expose him. In the end, the wolf in sheep's clothing was finally destroyed. Nika's vengeful spirit was freed, and justice was at last served. That's the end of the video.